Part of our overall mission is to deny them...
Coming in! Coming in!
The finest troops any country has ever had.
When U.S. troops invaded Iraq in 1991, they accomplished their goal with speed and accuracy, pushing Saddam Hussein and his army back from Kuwait within 100 hours. Americans celebrated what seemed to be a nearly flawless military victory. Of the 700,000 troops who served in the Gulf War, 99% of them came home unharmed. Or so it seemed.
When you say other symptoms, what sorts of symptoms?
I have back pain, I have my joint pain in my knees and my elbows. I have real bad headaches. And so from time to time I have a skin rash. I have memory loss.
West Memphian Doug Manning is one of thousands of Gulf War veterans who complain of these disabling symptoms since returning home from the war.
It feels like you just got the flu all the time, or you just don't have the energy to do anything, or your body hurts so bad you don't feel like doing anything.
The ailments haven't been diagnosed by the government, but they're lumped into one general description, commonly known as Gulf War syndrome. There are many theories as to what caused the syndrome. Some veterans believe they were exposed to chemical or biological weapons by the Iraqis.
Well, I think it could be the gases from, the scuds that they sent off.
The Pentagon denies there was any such exposure to our U.S. troops.
It's not right. Our government said we're going to send you over here. We want you to fight a war for our country, for our beliefs. And then when we come back, we're sick. Then the government turned their back on us.
The Department of Defense and VA doctors are researching the possibility that Gulf War syndrome stems from a combination of nerve gas pills, vaccines, and chemical bug repellents used by the troops.
I think that probably all of these agents were tested individually, but I doubt very seriously that anybody tested the insecticide and the pill and the immunization together.
Whatever the cause, Gulf War veterans suffering from the syndrome say it's not only destroying their health, but also blame it for some of their children's health problems. Diana Robinson of Mississippi says her 1-year-old daughter Ayla was born with a number of birth defects, the most visible being 2 fused fingers on her right hand and very crowded toes on both feet.
Saudi lives on. Saudi lives with me every day, and now it's going to be with me for the rest of my life.
Now that we've seen the problems some of these Gulf War veterans and their families are facing, the rest of the series will take a look at their daily struggles to live with their sicknesses. We'll also take a look at what the government is doing, or not doing, to help them recover from the curse of Saddam. Paula Haddock, WREG News Channel 3, tonight. As a field representative for a mortgage company, it's Roger Clark's job to drive around in his pickup truck and inspect homes.
There's nothing physical about it. All I do is type in the descriptions of the houses and what I think they may be worth and just general information.
But as easy as his job is, Clark says he can't work a full day because of the chronic fatigue that has plagued him since coming home from the Gulf War.
500 inspections a month. I do 500 now. I mean, before I went over there, I was doing, close to 1,000 inspections a month, if not more.
Clark was a sergeant in the National Guard when he volunteered for duty in the Persian Gulf in June of '91. Besides his fatigue and severe joint pain, Clark also came home with a sandfly parasite, causing open sores that left ugly scars. Roger Clark is not alone. There are more than 400 veterans right here in the Mid-South suffering from what is commonly known as Gulf War syndrome. Most of those Mid-South vets have been examined and are being treated here at the VA Medical Center in Memphis.
There are certain symptoms that are commonly reflected, such as complaints of fatigue or muscle aching, and in some cases headaches and things of that nature, but we've not really come up with anything that is a definite trend.
Eddie Mae Swift is hoping the doctors will come up with a diagnosis and a solution to her symptoms soon. She says since coming home from the war, even the most simple household chores are exhausting.
It's just feed my dog. I can feed across the fence, whatever, but I can't lift a bucket of water. I have friends that come over and feed my dog for me and whatever.
Swift was in Saudi Arabia for 4 months, setting up a prison compound with her Dyersburg National Guard unit. Since coming home, she's been prescribed a wide assortment of medication for joint and muscle pain, pain that cost Swift her job.
First they called it lupus. They treated me at the VA hospital for lupus for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years. And 2 years later, they tell me I don't have lupus, I have rheumatoid arthritis.
Being a scout, we were always on the move, you know, staying ahead of the tanks. And
West Memphian Doug Manning is still healthy enough to work, but he still makes several trips to the VA Medical Center looking for help with rashes and pains in his legs.
Well, it came back several times, and now it's on this side. About this, the area itself has increased, and it's really a sharp, burning pain, you know, and nobody has been able to tell me anything on that.
As far as the government telling anything about it, the Department of Defense is still researching the causes of Gulf War syndrome, and it's also looking into the deaths of more than 2,000 Gulf War veterans. Paula Haddock, WREG News Channel 3 Tonight. Hamming it up for the camera, 18-month-old Erica Coffey is all smiles. But her young life has not been all fun and games. She was born with Down syndrome and had to undergo corrective heart surgery.
We don't have it on either side of the family. And we were told we were young as far as having a Down syndrome child.
The Coffey say a more likely explanation is the Persian Gulf War. Coffey was stationed in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for 8 months, a place where he says chemical alarms went off every other night. The Coffeys believe that's the reason several men in his unit are now fathers of unhealthy children.
You cannot tell me what are the chances of a group of 5 friends, all 5 of them having something wrong with their children.
Although the government denies chemical weapons were used, there are studies being done on other chemicals used to decontaminate equipment. This congressional study on reproductive toxicants found that some decontaminating agents may cause weakening of the immune system, central nervous system depression, and liver damage. The Coffeys are just one of thousands of Gulf War families dealing with birth defects, and the problems these children are having are as varied as the symptoms of the veterans themselves. Take 1-year-old Ayla Robinson, for example. She's already had colon surgery, faces another surgery to correct 2 fused fingers on her right hand, and she also has crowded toes on both feet. Her father, Alvin, came home from Saudi with severe respiratory problems.
Sometimes at night, he'll just jump up out of bed like, and he can't breathe, and it's like he's choking.
Respiratory problems are the biggest complaints among a National Guard unit in Waynesboro, Mississippi. These parents testified to a Veterans Affairs Committee that 13 of 15 babies conceived after the war suffer from health problems. Richard West's daughter was 1 week premature and had underdeveloped lungs.
We, along with the doctor, we just felt like it was due to her being premature. And when we got concerned is when so many babies were being born close by, they were having problems. You know, they would be, born to Desert Storm veterans.
It looks like I have varicose veins.
But government doctors called in the leading experts in the world to study the Waynesboro group, and they found nothing.
It wasn't the government, it wasn't the Department of Defense or the VA saying that these aren't birth defects. It was the expert from the Center for Disease Control who, when they actually examined the medical records of the 54 children born to members of the Waynesboro unit, found that there was not an increased incidence of birth defects.
The experts say so far there's no evidence the Gulf War can be blamed for any children's sicknesses.
I know in my heart, I don't care what anybody says, I know this is what happened to my baby. I know.
Although many Gulf War couples are afraid to have children now, doctors say their fears have no basis. Paula Haddock, WREG News Channel 3 Tonight.
Preventing them from doing that recon. During the day they don't come out because we've got power forward to prevent them from doing that. So if we get into contact, our mission here is to deny their ability to be able to see where we're at.
Almost 4 years after the explosions in the Middle East, thousands of Gulf War veterans say they're still fighting Desert Storm.
They were wrong because we wasn't in the storm there. The storm was when we got back. That's the storm. The storm going on now.
Still taking a lot of pain medication and wearing braces for rheumatoid arthritis, Eddie Mae Swift of Dyersburg is among thousands of veterans still suffering from Gulf War syndrome and still frustrated with the U.S. government.
The government they just dumped on everybody that they got ill. They didn't want to take responsibility, so.
And I can understand the veterans who are affected wanting an answer right now, but scientifically it takes a little bit of time to get those answers.
In an effort to find a diagnosis and possible cure, the Veterans Affairs Department has set up computer registries in its hospitals across the nation, keeping track of the medical records and symptoms of each Gulf War syndrome victim. There are also several studies into what caused the syndrome. Although they were prepared for it, the Department of Defense says Saddam Hussein never used chemical weapons during Desert Storm.
They said that he did not use chemical warfare. They don't know what he used.
The government says a more likely possibility is the combination of a bug repellent used by the troops and the anti-nerve gas pill they took. A congressional study shows when used together, the two agents are 10 times as potent and could cause serious neurological symptoms. Out of the more than 30,000 veterans suffering from the Gulf War syndrome, more of them come here to the VA Medical Center in Birmingham than anywhere else in the country for treatment. This is the only hospital designated to test for chemical and biological exposure.
I had the modeling on both arms, but it's the varicose vein looking stuff that...
Although the U.S. has no evidence of any chemical weapons being used, the Czechoslovakian military did detect traces of mustard gas and nerve poison during Desert Storm. That's why the Birmingham facility looks specifically for chemical-related symptoms.
However, our efforts to date have not yielded any evidence that those unexplained symptoms are a direct result of exposure to chemical agents.
While doctors continue their research, financial help is finally on the way for many disabled veterans in the form of a $50 million compensation package. A hotline has also been set up for Gulf War veterans who think their medical problems are connected to Desert Storm. For an examination and answers about the curse of Saddam, veterans should call 1-800-796-9699. Paula Haddock, WREG News Channel 3 Tonight.